Sit down if you want to.
Right in the middle of what's going on.
I'm in the middle of an interrogation.
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
The middle children of history, man.
Middle of the day, Alfred?
Please, take a seat there.
Right now, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Stop the middle, it's a base hit!
Meeting in the middle.
Like.
They fought for the freedom of middle.
The middle of a war! This is freaking ridiculous!
Why don't we have a seat and talk it over?
No! Not the middle seat!
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Middle Seats Podcast, the best seat in the house for all things movies and entertainment. I'm Andrew Auger, I'm your host as per usual, and I'm joined by Nate Lungarini and Jake Hensler. We are talking about Disney's huge, big blockbuster for the winter, Frozen 2. We'll be discussing it in detail. We have a non-spoiler section, then we'll rate it on our seat scale, and then we'll get into major spoilers for Frozen 2. Ooh, major spoilers for Frozen 2.
Careful.
This is part of a whole. We are recording a huge episode tonight. You are listening just to the Frozen 2 review. If you want to listen to the full podcast, non-interrupted, where we talk about some of our favorite news items of the week. We talk about random other things. I don't want to spoil it. Spoilers. I just made a big deal about spoilers.
You don't listen to you.
You can listen to that on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you listen to podcasts, SoundCloud. If you want to listen to just that segment, there's another video here on YouTube that you can find. Now, without further ado, here's a snippet of the trailer for Frozen 2.
The kingdom is not safe.
I'm going with you.
Anna? No.
Excuse me, I climbed the North Mountain, survived a frozen heart, and saved you from my ex-boyfriend, so, I'm coming.
Where did you learn magic?
Elsa, get out of there!
You can't just follow me into fire.
I believe in you, Elsa, more than anyone or anything.
Frozen 2 is the sequel to Disney's second highest grossing movie of all time. Isn't that crazy to think about? Disney animation, I should say.
Yeah, but still nuts.
It's unbelievable. Just behind The Lion King overall worldwide. It is directed by Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee, who directed the 2013 original. They returned for this. It stars Adele Dazeem, Idina Menzel, of course, making 2014 jokes here on the Middle Seats Podcast. We've also got Kristen Bell, Josh Gad, Jonathan Groff, Sterling K. Brown, Alfred Molina, Evan Rachel Wood, Ciarán Hinds, and Alan Tudyk. Really big voice cast for this one, as you might expect. It takes place roughly 3 years after the original Frozen. The kingdom of Arendelle, Elsa and Anna ruling together as sisters. Elsa's hearing this call from the woods, and this whole movie is about her venturing into the unknown, into a mysterious forest, which is shrouded by fog, to figure out what's on the other side and the mysteries that it may hold. Now, of course, everyone and their daughters anticipating this movie because of the notoriety of the first Frozen. I think it's pretty safe to say that even since 2013, this movie's hype has probably not died down that much. Like, kids today still love this film. I've heard stories of parents that have watched it like 50 times because it's just on replay. It's like Lion King and Aladdin were for us.
Ryan Reynolds said something about it.
Sure.
So that's a lot of pressure on the filmmakers of Frozen 2 to kind of live up to that film's legacy. Because there are a lot of people that think Frozen is overrated, but then there are people that absolutely love it. So where does this stand? Nate, what did you think preliminarily of Frozen 2?
There are a lot of things to like, and there are some things I'm not as high on, but at the end of the day, this is still a very competent Disney princess movie. I can't speak so much to the songs, but from an untrained ear, they sounded good and fun. Not as catchy as the originals. I think the story, I don't think anybody expected Frozen to be the lightning in the bottle that it was, blowing up kids' families' houses everywhere with the soundtrack,
Yeah.
But now that Frozen 2 is here, they're like, well, shoot, we need to come up with lore and backstories and like stuff in this universe because we just made a simple story the first time around. How do we do that again? And I almost feel like it got a little mucked down in its own world building. But a lot of the things that you liked from the first one are still here. Olaf is still funny. The music is still good. The sister relationship is still strong. They added some new supporting characters that have their moments here and there, but your core characters are still doing what made the first one good.
So you hand a kid the aux cord these days, and they put Let It Go on, and then Jake, you would take the aux cord, grab that kid's phone, smash it with a hammer, and then put on How Far I'll Go by Moana, because I know that you're not a huge fan of the original Frozen.
That's relatively accurate.
With the hammer and everything, too? Wow.
No, I would let the kid do his thing, and then be like, all right, my turn, and then put the pass lock on, and then just let Moana repeat. I really think Moana's great. I think the original Frozen is fine, and it's just kind of how I feel about this next one. It's just, it's okay. Truthfully, I saw it last night, and I'm already kind of forgetting a little bit of it. I don't know. Something about the Frozen universe doesn't really stick with me that well. Like, I kind of echo what Nate says. It's competent. It's a great word for it. It's not a bad movie. But I just nothing really settles with me. Nothing really gets me that engaged. Other than Disney is good at finding messages and good messages to give to their audiences. I agree the sister relationship is good and escalates and is strong. Olaf is fun. Again, there's a couple good chuckles. I don't know. The music's not really that great, I don't think. I think it's fine. I'm going to get some hate for this from anybody who loves Frozen and listens, but I don't know. I think like the voice acting's fine. There's just not a whole lot that really catches me or reels me in. It's a fine hour 40. Nothing that special.
You're very concerned about the Frozen Mafia, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I have an irrational fear of mafias coming after me, because I've said that in the past about other movies too.
What's the worst that the Frozen Mafia looks like? Like, you don't have any Conor McGregors in that Mafia. It's a lot of 8-year-olds and
Do you
theater
not
kids.
remember the giant ice snowman from Frozen 1?
Yeah. Hello.
He's gonna get impaled.
And Nate, I do remember that, because I think out of the three of us, I am certainly the high man on the original Frozen. I really, really, really like that movie a lot. I think it's probably a top 5 Disney movie for me, and I don't feel that wavering when I say it.
Woof.
You're a goon.
That is not that controversial of opinion, first of all.
Like, Frozen 1, I'll give it like a 4 out of 5 kind of thing. Like, it's a solid plush recliner, I suppose, but I would not go top 5 Disney all time.
Yeah, I would. Lion King, Moana, Beauty and the Beast, and then probably Frozen. Maybe Wreck-It Ralph. Maybe Wreck-It Ralph 4, then Frozen. Yeah, I think it's a great ode to sisterhood. It does everything right that all those Renaissance movies that we love do, but also works for the current age that we live in as far as subversive storytelling and sisterhood and fantastic music. And that's all of the setup to say that this movie is kind of not as good. It's not even close, really. Yeah.
All right, at least we can all agree on that. It was just...
I was trying to set you up to make you think that I was going to be like, this one's even better, but it really isn't. Nate, I think you especially nailed it on the head when you were saying that they were not prepared to make a Frozen 2. I don't think anything was expected in the way that that movie made money. And then they kind of scrambled and were like, oh man, we have to make another one of these. And I agree. In many ways, it is everything you expect from a sequel, where it's more but less. And the less comes from having more. And that sounds like a Yoda-ism or Yogi Berra-ism, but it makes sense. Think about it this way. The first Frozen movie is so airtight in its storytelling, and that's why it's so impactful, because we focus specifically on Elsa and Anna and their relationship. When you start adding other characters in, then things become more muddled. You separate them for a good period of time as well, and it's just kind of fleeting. And I agree with you, Jake, when I say it's hard to remember a lot of key high points. Now, at the same time, I think the music is very good. I liked a lot of the songs. There's probably one that I would put on the same level as the songs in Frozen 1. The rest of them are good, but not great. The visuals are incredible. I love the use of the autumn colors. I love the evolution of the animation. You see, they clearly got at least $50 million more to make this movie than they did the first one, because...
Yes, there's a lot of really good colors in animation. I didn't mention that, but I agree. It all looks really good.
Yeah.
It really looks really good.
And the one thing I want to say about the animation is that I'm finding it harder and harder to see the line between Pixar and Disney animation. I feel like between the water animation here, the snow, even the earthy elements, it looks really close to Pixar levels for a lot of this movie, which is kind of crazy to me, considering where we came from.
Right, and they try a lot of experimental looks in this one that the first film just didn't have. There are a lot of trippy sequences in this thing. It's funny. It's very, very, very cute. It's very clear the kids are going to love this, and they should. It's good for them.
Right.
I think my big problem is that it never really justifies its own existence. It doesn't feel essential, which is the main cardinal sin of a lot of sequels. And that doesn't make it a bad movie. It just doesn't make it a consequential one.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at too. It was kind of funny. I kept teetering back and forth on whether I liked it or didn't like it as the movie was going on. Like in the beginning, I was like, I like the concept that they're introducing. Okay. No, not really a fan of that. That was a little dumb. Oh, we're wrapping up kind of nicely. Okay, all right, cool. I can like very, very uneven on and off. Like when Nate said, they were not ready to make this sequel. Jennifer Kent was one of the directors and the writers, right?
No. Jennifer Kent directed The Babadook.
Oh, The Babadook.
Way different.
Totally different. Who is
different.
she? Who is this
Jennifer
one?
Lee directed this.
Jennifer Lee.
I almost went to IMDb to make sure that I wasn't crazy. And I was like, wow, what a career shift.
Yeah, I was like, that's definitely somebody in the industry. Who am I thinking of?
That's your third screwball there for the day, Drew.
There you go, yeah.
But yeah, she must have, when Disney was like, hey, great, it made $400 million in the United States. We need another one. She's probably like, oh, okay. Uh-oh. Now what?
And this does one of the things that I hate most about sequels of this nature is that it makes backstories for things that didn't need backstories. And it even does some cheesy things of like tying it into scenes directly from the first movie. And
I don't like that either.
Yeah, it's just like you told a great story the first time around, like you said, Drew, airtight and fairly simple, which allowed us to have more time with the characters and the humor, which absolutely stand out in the first Frozen. Mm-hmm. For this one, it's so focused on its plot and trying to come up with this weird lore system of like a whole new kingdom next door that wasn't mentioned at all before, kind of thing.
Right.
And I'm just sitting there like, why do we have to focus on all this past stuff? Why couldn't they just go on an adventure in Futureland? You know, they're always trying to bring it back to some stuff that they do with other characters, and just like, I don't care. Let's just see Anna and Elsa just go on an adventure with Olaf and Kristoff. You know, I don't need to bring it back to Frozen 1 all the time.
The past approach really doesn't work for this franchise, and I'll get into that when we get into spoilers. But yeah, man, the script is kind of a clunker. Like, it is comprised of a lot of different subplots. All the characters are doing their own isolated things with their own objectives, as opposed to moving in the same direction. Like, they're all on the same quest, but they all have different motives. And that's set up very nicely early in the film, but that doesn't really work in execution, because then you're splitting them apart psychologically for so much of it that it just doesn't have the same fresh feel as the first film. It's the overcompensating for the fact that, okay, we need to evolve these storylines, but at the same time, we need to tell a very dense story to, you know, make the audience feel like they're not getting shortchanged. And then it's like, okay, but at the same time, you're shortchanging us by not giving us what we liked in the first place.
And if I could just elaborate too, because everyone is focused on the plot, I felt like this movie had a lot less humor in it. And I think that really hurts it.
Yeah, I agree.
Olaf was pretty much the only consistently funny character, and even he has this weird arc about trying to grow up and understand his own existence for the first half of the movie, which
that's what I'm talking about with these subplots. Like,
yeah, it's played to some comedic effect, but at the same time, like, I don't need philosophy coming from Olaf right now when everyone else is just as down in the dumps as you are, man.
Right.
Yeah.
It's comedy until it's abruptly not. Like
Exactly. Again, not getting into spoilers, but the all is lost moment of this movie right before the climax, it's pretty dark for a kid's film. I remember like looking around the theater, like trying to see if little kids were squirming in their seats, because I was surprised about how dark and almost scary this got right before the ending.
Right, and it's pretty out of nowhere in my opinion too.
Yes.
Like it goes from 0 to 10 real quick.
Actually, yeah, I was thinking that too. I feel like they like kind of build and build and build to where they want to take you, and then all of a sudden things just happen. And then it's the climax, and then all of a sudden they start to wrap up. And I'm like, wait, what? Weren't we on a journey? There was a lot of build up to a climax that really just kind of happened out of nowhere.
So let's get into the spoiler section and give our ratings here so we can get into specifically those points. If you've never seen the show before, we grade things on a seat scale. If we love it, we give it a royal throne. If we think it's great with minimal flaws, we give it a plush recliner. If it's a movie with significant flaws but still pretty good, we give it a wooden seat. The inverse of that, if it's a bad movie with some decent things in it, we give it a damp lawn chair. If we think it's irredeemable, we give it a sleazy outhouse. And if we think it's a movie you need to see in theaters, we give it a bag of popcorn moniker. So Jake, continue on that little riff you were doing. What's your rating?
Okay. There were points where I was starting to get a little low on it, but I'm not going to venture that low. I'll give it because I didn't dislike it. I feel like below a wooden seat is dislike, and I'm not there. I didn't dislike it. So I'll give it a wooden seat, and I'll throw it the bag of popcorn moniker because the visuals are really good. It looks really, really good. But if you get a good crowd, you might enjoy the songs more. Maybe you'll get a couple more laughs, things like that. But mainly the visuals look really, really good. So that's where I'm at. A nice even wooden seat. Nothing really too special.
Nate, go ahead.
I'm going to be in a very similar place. Definitely a wooden seat type of movie. I liked it, but didn't really like it and definitely didn't love it. It's a flawed sequel. It's not nearly as impactful. And I feel like it was a lot less relatable than the first one. The first one was all about just learning to live with your sister and just kind of that companionship and how that is stronger than a lot of classic Disney tropes of true love and that kind of stuff.
Challenging true love was the big thing, which I adored. I thought that was so cool.
I did like that about the first two,
and a cool subversive idea that took off and ignited the country, or rather than froze it over. For this one, I feel like all the ideas are so much more abstract that I just don't feel like I connected to it personally, and I definitely don't think kids will either. I think it's more about the flash and flare and less about the tightly written substance of the first one. So, yeah, visually good. Songs were fine, but again, not nearly as universal or sing-along-y compared to the original. So if you're looking for that, I don't know if this has that for you either. But again, not bad, just mediocre. Wooden seat.
I say it's a little bit better than mediocre, but I'm still on the wooden seat range. I really like these characters, and this movie coasts a lot on the fact that I like these characters so much in the past that it really is making up for the shortcomings of the writing. It's very scattered and it's very anticlimactic what this film builds to, in my opinion. But it's a funny film. It's got a lot of great visuals, like we said. The voice cast does a nice job. I think the songs are a little better than you guys are giving them credit for, but they're still not fantastic. I won't do bag of popcorn moniker because I think this movie is probably more a fun sing-along at home. That would be my argument. But, you know, Jake is right. The visuals are nice enough to warrant a seat in the theaters. And let's be honest, you're probably going to see it.
So, like, bowl of ice cream? What moniker are you giving it then?
Microwave popcorn.
Yeah. All right, folks. Let's move on to spoilers. If you have not seen Frozen 2, check out now. If you have, let's dive in.
Whoa! Oh, spoiler alert!
Spoiler! Spoiler!
Excuse me! Spoiler alert!
So, Nate, what you were saying about sequels going into the past and reaching into the backstory and making it such a big deal, that especially doesn't work for Frozen. So Frozen 2, a lot of it is about reckoning with what Arendelle did in the past. Their sins against this other kingdom that, like you guys said, we had never heard of before this, so kind of odd. Anyway, the idea of reckoning with the sins of the past and making up for it to the point where you're possibly sacrificing your life and your people's way of life. Guys, what is a key line in Let It Go? The past is in the past. Let it go.
Oh, boy.
It's directly in contrast to the entire moniker of Frozen's biggest song.
Well, also, Frozen's biggest song doesn't really make sense in the context of its own movie because Elsa was kind of wrong. She was supposed to reconnect with her family, but that all aside.
Right. It works as an end of first act song.
Yes.
Where that character is in time, so that's why I think it works. But yeah, as a big empowerment song, no, I agree.
Yeah. Going back to atoning for the sins of your kingdom, so to speak. You know what movie did a lot of this? and is actually a poster in Drew's bedroom, I know for sure, for freaking Ragnarok.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm glad you said that.
right over my shoulder.
And one of the big climatic moments of that movie is that Asgard needs to fall because Asgard is a people, not a place. Now, maybe they thought they couldn't do the exact same arc in Frozen, but the fact that you have Elsa almost dead, like a
kind of was
lost to the spirit world, I guess. I don't really know exactly what happened to her. It happened out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Playing a really bad game of red light, green light.
Yeah. Whatever that was. You have Olaf disappearing,
pulling a Peter Parker in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm serious. There was like a 15-minute period where I'm like, they're doing Infinity War and Ragnarok back to back. I was getting annoyed. I'm like, guys, really?
Anna, I don't feel so good. Anna, I don't want to go.
And the third thing, Arendelle is in jeopardy, and the town's gonna get flooded in order to solve the crisis of the movie. So you have all three of those very dramatic moments that happen very, very quickly, and they get resolved even quicker.
Yeah.
With no consequences. And like, where's the dealing with the past if none of it matters and everything gets solved?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anna's big, like, hope is lost grief moment comes out of nowhere. I keep saying Anna. Sorry.
It's so depressing. She's in the bottom of that cave and like she's crying and there's no light in the scene visually or like story-wise. It's a dark, dark moment, especially for a Disney film of this status, you know? Like this needs to appeal to your young demographic, and I thought that was scary, honestly.
Honestly, I was okay with that. I was kind of like you guys, I had more of an issue with the jarring nature of it. I was like, we just went from Elsa and Anna saying we're going to be together to breaking up to both of them at their complete lowest to figuring it out and resolving. I'm like, that was just a little fast.
Yeah.
Maybe a little too much setup. Actually, you know what they could have cut? Talking about issues with the past. Olaf did not need to recap Frozen 1.
Oh, that was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, though.
Okay, yeah.
I was like,
I thought that was funny.
I was like, it was funny, but we didn't need it. And then Elsa does it again when she gets into that random crystal place. She looks at herself singing "Let It Go" and kind of shrugs. Like, that whole thing recaps Frozen 1 again. What are we doing? Let's move with this story. I know Frozen 1 was a hit. I saw it. That's why I'm here.
It's weird. And you know what actually was similar for me was Kristoff's song. As a story beat, it felt out of place. It felt like a very weird moment to be having story-wise, because we're actually starting to get into the serious elemental territory by then. But at the same time, Kristoff's song as a 80s power ballad is freaking hilarious.
Yeah,
As
I
was
agree.
Olaf's recap of the original one. It was a great joke, just at the wrong time in the movie, I think.
Yeah. Two of the top 5 favorite parts of the movie right there that we're talking about. I agree. All of the love stuff is kind of lame with Kristoff. Like, it's such a sitcom plot. And I get it, this is a movie for children, but like the balancing of tones we're talking about, if this is going to be darker, you need to do this a little bit better.
At the very least, earlier.
Yeah. The one song I really, really, really like is the big reintroduction song. The Some Things Never Change, where we get to see all the characters again, and they kind of set up their motivations for the movie. I really like that ensemble song. Into the Unknown is decent. It's definitely trying to be Let It Go, like 2.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's okay. It's a pretty good tune, and Idina Menzel can really sing.
That she can.
Yes. As far as issues go, I was a little annoyed that they like not recapped Frozen 1 twice, but definitely went back to it twice, as in like, remember how good Frozen 1 was? Like, yep,
Really, 3 times. Remember when they're playing charades? They kind of do that too.
Oh,
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Whatchamacallit. I also felt like for the first half, a lot of Anna's character is Elsa, stop leaving me. Elsa, we agreed to stick together. I'm like, I know you agreed on that, but that's kind of been your character trait 3 times in a row now.
That's one of the other big themes of the movie. We're kind of talking about, and you're seeing a pattern here, similar themes, good messages, but that have been done better in other movies. This movie is very much about people you love so much, you can stay loving them, but let them do their own thing. But that exact message was done better in Ralph Breaks the Internet a year ago.
Yep.
And we talked about it on our show.
Absolutely.
It's the exact same message. And that movie is a lot more focused on that. Like, it goes a little over the top with it at points. Remember when there's the big, like, Ralph droid thing, Ralph virus?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, love me Vanellope. And it's like, okay, this is a little on the nose. But at least it's focused on that one thing. Frozen 2 has, like, 4 separate messages that are running parallel with each other, like the subway race at Yankee Stadium. And no one wins.
Well done. Good reference.
That's a good one.
That's a lot of time at Yankee Stadium thinking about that.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a little too convoluted. It really did flip-flop on what worked and what didn't with me. Like, it was like almost every 20 minutes I was like, this is working and this is not. This is working and this is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get a little bit more concrete on specifics in the movie, maybe this is a little nitpicky on my part, but I'm kind of over the earth, water, fire, air thing. I feel like we've seen that in a lot of stuff.
It's literally
and I'm kind of
Avatar,
tired
like-
of it. Yeah. Well, obviously it's Avatar, and the 4 classical elements are just a thing. So obviously there's going to be a lot of fiction that takes from that. But I just wish it wasn't so by the numbers in that regard. Like, okay, we're gonna have the air spirit, and then we're gonna move on to the fire spirit, and just keep rolling down the track because you got to go in an order.
And again, it's there, but it's like barely a part
Exactly.
of this.
And they spend so much time talking about it because you have to have it connect to the forest's backstory. You have to have it connect to the people that live in the forest.
Yeah, her
You have to
parents.
have it connect to Elsa. And as literally, as soon as they said, oh, but there could be a 5th spirit, I wonder who that could be. I'm like, okay, it's Elsa. Woohoo.
I was actually...
Is it the girl that caused the problem in the first place? Probably.
I was really hoping it wouldn't be her. I'm like, please tell me you're not going predictable, and please tell me you're not making Elsa a god. I don't need that.
Jake, look at it the other way. The only other thing they would have done is that the 5th element is love.
Captain Planet to the rescue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you kind of stumped me. I was trying to think of something else, and I couldn't come up with anything.
Because they went with the generic 4 elements, you're kind of stuck on that track. And I feel like you could have had a much better time if you were a little more loose with your lore and just said, yeah, there's elemental creatures in this world, and this one happens to be a water horse, and that's cool. Instead of like an ice person.
That horse was awesome, though.
Yeah, animated.
Beautifully animated,
Yeah.
And like made some cool shots for sure.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was on a theme park ride, and we were just stopping at each event.
I really like that whole sequence, though. She's basically Iceman on the water.
I actually wanted to address that. So she's really struggling to contain her powers in the first one. And in the second one, they start off with her getting startled and freezing the banister she's sitting at. And I'm like, okay, she's still learning to control it. And then she just has the most control I've ever seen from any superhero with ice powers.
Right.
I'm like, she could do anything.
It's been
Literally
3
unstoppable.
years.
Well, and to be fair, she made life literally in the
twice.
first movie.
Yeah, but the first one is so much about her being unable to control it, and I feel like now she's like, she's literally a god. I want to see her master that a little bit more. She's like unstoppable in this one.
I don't know. I don't think I would need that, Jake, just because it'd be another plot point in an already convoluted movie.
Right.
Yeah, but I feel like they almost OP'd her. I'm like, she can actually do anything. And that's a little too much for me.
That's fair.
That's definitely not a top focus of theirs, but really there is no main focus here. I was very much expecting them to be like, oh, your parents are alive somehow. I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, that would be annoying.
When we saw the ship, some girl, probably 2 to 3 years younger than us, went, and I was like, oh, they're not going to do it, are they? Like, there's no way that these people are alive. You've got that element possibly floating out there. You've got everything with Sterling K. Brown's character, where he plays a former Arendelle guard who's been trapped in this mist for years, for decades at this point. And it's like, he has maybe 25, 30 lines, and the only contribution he makes is he throws a rock at the rock thing.
Well, he saves.
He throws a
helps
rock at the
Anna.
rock thing, and he bangs his shield.
Yeah, he saves Anna.
I know, but
You could have had Kristoff do that too. He
Well, I mean,
literally
Kristoff's
was the
did that.
next
Sure.
stand.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah, he just somehow finds her in the middle of nowhere. Sure.
There's a lot of that in this movie, I thought, in like the second act, where I thought we had like traversed through the forest, and all of a sudden we were right back at the starting area.
Yeah.
And I'm like, have you guys
Actually,
just been
yes.
standing here for the last 30 minutes of the movie?
Is this Blair Witch Project?
Hey, man, real estate isn't cheap these days. Like,
little nitpicky. I have some geographical issues. Like,
yeah,
they go wandering. Like, they take this big expedition. Like, Elsa, you can't go alone. We're all coming. It's like a mile away. It's like up the road.
Yeah.
It's really not that far. Like, this enchanted forest they talk about is really, like, right there. Like, where the first movie takes place, where Elsa runs off to, it's, like, really kind of just next to it. It's not that far.
They pass it, yeah.
Yeah, they pass it. And, like, there's a dam that stops all this water. The water gets there in, like, a minute. Like, this place is not that far.
No.
So,
it really isn't.
Picky, but...
The reason it seems so treacherous in the first is because it was, like, horrific winter. But yeah, here we're talking about geography at this point. I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah, I know it's nitpicky, but I did. I was like, what's going on?
I think we're done here. Nate, final thoughts on Frozen 2?
Yeah. From a technical aspect, from a musical aspect, I think this is definitely satisfactory. In terms of visuals, I think it excels. But that also is just kind of par for the course for Disney animation at this point. So I'm glad that they at least weren't lazy and did a great job with some of the unique features of this franchise. I just wish we had more of the characters we had from the first time around. I wish they really focused on the sense of humor that made the first one so iconic. I wish the sisterly bond was less in peril for this entire movie. It felt like Anna was losing Elsa the entire movie when we just spent all of last movie growing that bond. Like, sisterly love. Let's make it a theme to conquer their adventures. This was basically just Elsa, I'm gonna go do my own adventure, and everyone else is just kind of wait for me to be done.
Yeah, like pushing her away the entire movie.
Yeah, so that all fell flat on me. We spent way too much time just talking about the lore of the forest and the elements and whatnot. Yeah. I didn't care. I was bored with that stuff from the first exposition dump, and there were lots of exposition dumps in this movie. Overall, it was fine. I know we aren't the target demographic for it, but there are great family movies that appeal to all ages. I don't think this is one of them.
Jake, what did you think of Frozen 2?
I'm basically with Nate. It is kind of what I expected. I didn't expect it to love it all that much, and I didn't. It was fine. It had its issues, but it does have a relatively nice message. I do like that they separated Elsa and Anna, and they have their own kind of kingdoms to rule, though you're right, Ralph Breaks the Internet did it better. One final point I did want to bring up is that whole fire lizard thing. Every time it was on screen, I wanted to just scratch its chin.
Isn't that the same lizard we've seen in every other Disney animated movie? Like, we had one in Moana who looked the exact same.
But no, but this one had more of a personality. I wanted to scratch its chin. I wanted to pet it. I wanted to rub its head. Frozen 2 was fine. There are much better kids movies. There are much better movies in general. And like Nate said, this didn't appeal to all the audiences, but that's okay.
And I don't think it's a bad example of a family movie either. But I would agree. I'm not feeling apathy, but I can't muster up a lot of emotion for it. Whereas I'd go to war for the first Frozen, as you guys have probably gotten by now. This one, I'd be like, okay, it's solid. It's decent. It's baseline what you expect of a Frozen 2. You know, it doesn't exceed expectations. It probably meets them. It's a step below the first because of its convoluted story and that sequelitis approach that it kind of takes. But I think if you love these characters, you'll get a decent amount of enjoyment out of this. You'll definitely have a good time, especially if you have kids. That'll do it for our review of Frozen 2 and for this edition of the Middle Seats podcast, hopefully brought to you by Quiznos. Before we go, Nate, where can they find us on the internet?
Alrighty, here's how you can get in touch with us. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Middle Seats. You can also listen to us on the go on all your podcast platforms, including SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. For questions, comments, and updates on the show, keep an eye on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at The Middle Seats. And if you like what you hear and want to see more content, let us know and spread the word.
We have a lot of exciting things circulating here this winter, folks. Please be sure to keep up with our box office challenge. Be sure to listen to the other part of this podcast if you haven't already. And also, be sure to be listening to our Star Wars recaps as we're counting down to the release of Rise of Skywalker. We're going to be doing a podcast for pretty much every single Star Wars movie that has come out theatrically. We will have a couple of these out by the time you listen to this. We're having a lot of fun doing them, so please listen to those too, especially if you're a big Star Wars person or a big Jar Jar Binks fan like Jake is. Anyway, that will do it for this episode of the Middle Seats Podcast. For Jake Hensler and Nate Longarini, I'm Andrew Auger. Keep that seat warm, everyone. We'll be back soon.